The After Party by A.C. Arthur. Performed by Bonnie Turpin. There wasn't enough Hennessy in the world to make her feel good about standing next to not one but two ass-kissing, backstabbing, less experienced men with a cordial grin on her face. Unfortunately, this was a position Venus had become quite accustomed to. 7 years ago, during her first internship, she had trained Rufus to manage his first project with BCC. Even though he'd been working at the company before her in some entry-level position. 2 years ago, he'd schmoozed his way into the director position, corner office, and salary she'd coveted. This morning, Rufus had once again betrayed her by announcing Mike Livingston as project manager for the $20 million Terrell Hopkins Sports Complex project to be built in southwest Baltimore. Tonight, Rufus was smug and confident, dressed in his designer tuxedo with the waves in his short-cropped black hair poppin', his beard neatly trimmed, and diamond studs in both ears. He was fine. There was no doubt, but Rufus Jackson was also a jerk of the highest caliber. From his arrogant attitude to the numerous infidelities to the way he treated the women on his staff, he was a pathetic excuse for a human being. He was also an integral part of her career, having always been in a position above her at BCC.
I presume site selection and analysis have been researched and laid out for the client meeting on Monday, Lewis said while raising his bushy eyebrows in question. Mike didn't respond, and neither did Venus, because it wasn't her project to speak on. Until Rufus stepped closer, giving her arm a little bump with his. She didn't even have to look at him to know he expected her to bail him out yet again. For an instant, she considered leaving him hanging the way he always seemed to do where she was concerned. Then she thought about who was standing a couple of steps away from her. Yes, there's already a report for 2 prospective sites in the area Mr. Hopkins specified, with complete analysis and a plan to work with many of our regular vendors who've proven to be dependable and budget-friendly. The final plans for the complex came in earlier this week, so the team has had a few days to familiarize themselves with them. The team should be ready to roll on Monday. She knew all of this because for the last 4 weeks, since they'd received the call from Terrell Hopkins's lawyer that he was interested in partnering with a local construction company on this project, she'd been working as if she would be handling the account. As senior project manager, she should have been the one to get it, not Mike, who was only 1 year out of college and had no experience supervising a project of this size on his own. Lewis smiled, treating her to a view of his straight white teeth and the deep dimple in his right cheek. Excellent. So, the plan is to work through the winter and get this done by next fall. I hear there's a lot of promo in the works for the unveiling, and Terrell's being allowed to talk about the project in conjunction with his other endorsements. So that's some major exposure for BCC.
It sure is, and we plan to take advantage of that, while also giving Mr. Hopkins our full attention to his project. We've come up with some pretty cutting-edge plans with one of the best architects in the city, Venus continued, now that she had Lewis's ear. Talking about the positive work she'd been doing in the department was a hell of a lot better than contemplating the times she'd remained silent when Rufus was making decisions that could have been detrimental to the company. She couldn't go back to the past and undo the fact that she hadn't told Lewis or anyone else about going behind Rufus to correct his mistakes with a few of their big customers. As many times as she'd considered doing just that, especially after this morning's announcement, it was too late. Bringing it up now would make her look as if she'd been complicit in his intent to falsify the spending records on projects, even though she'd ultimately corrected them. Add to that the very truthful claim that she was angry about being passed over for a promotion, and remaining silent about the past was in her best interest. which was precisely how Rufus had put it when they'd argued in her office earlier today.